Welcome to Face Forward, the podcast, the series that takes you behind the scenes of the riveting world of clinical trial management. I am your host, Valerie Coveney, and I am thrilled to be your guide on this journey through the nuances of planning, executing, and navigating the clinical research landscape. Our special guest has more than 17 years of experience in the industry. Today's episode is about lessons learned in Phase 3 clinical trials from a project manager's perspective. So whether you're a longtime listener or joining us for the first time, get ready to be inspired and informed. Our guest's expertise is sure to inspire you for your upcoming Phase 3 trial. Let's extend our warmest welcome to Innovaderm's project director, Mounia Lahjou. Thank you for being here, Mounia.
The pleasure is mine.
So earlier, Mounia, you shared with me 3 lessons you learned from Phase 3 clinical trials, and we're going to elaborate on them today. Let's begin with the first one. Documentation is everything. So can you cover how this lesson has been significant for you in the perspective of a project manager?
Well, everyone in clinical research has already heard the saying, if it's not written, it did not happen. And you will spend a lot of time trying putting the pieces together. And this is particularly true when handling studies that you are running for a long period of time, involving many sites and having an extensive team. A lot is going on. And that's why it's important to document study decisions, document events, and action items. We need to know who decided on what, when, what was the rationale. Because traceability is important. And we should storyboard while the information is still fresh. Because we all think that, yeah, for sure, I will remember the details of this situation. It was so painful. How can I forget? But you will forget. In 6 months or a year from now, your memory might fade. Team members could change or leave. There is a turnover, it's a reality. And if ever that information is needed in the future for an inspection or anything else, you will have to go through the painful experience of going through multiple communication to find what you are looking for. So be disciplined and track, document the information in a centralized log. I know it's difficult as we are so deep in the action. We keep running, multitasking, there's so much to do. And we forget, we don't take the time. But it's important to pause, reflect, and write things down.
Exactly, well said. So another lesson you mentioned was process compliance. Can you explain to our listeners what this means to you?
What I mean by this is that we put in place many processes and SOPs. We are a very regulated industry. And we also have a clear RACI identifying who's doing what, who's accountable for what, who's responsible. But we also need effectiveness checks to ensure that everyone is applying the processes as they should. We need to watch out for gaps. Maybe a simple example to illustrate what I'm saying is, for example, the task of verifying debarment checks. Yeah, we have a process in place, great. But we know that studies are long, team members are changing, transitioning, and people can forget. And then you end up with the task not being done or not being done correctly, and it's a problem. And you just realize when it's too late at the end of the study. That's why we need to put in place a verification process and effectiveness checks on ongoing basis to make sure we don't have gaps and to reinforce the behavior within the team. It sounds simple, but it's not that much. It needs discipline once again.
Excellent. So the last lesson we will cover today is the concept of lesson learned and process improvement. How does this idea impact your role in a Phase 3 trial?
Well, errors can happen, and we are all human, as I said before. What we should do once we identify those errors and we document them, as I mentioned in my previous point, is that we should understand the root cause and we need to learn from them to avoid the recurrence in the future. That's why lessons learned are so important. They're actually a gift. We should pause. Again, I love this word, I know. It's actually a tribute to a colleague of mine, and I'm sure he will recognize himself. So I was saying we should pause to assess what went wrong and put in place corrective measures. and implement process improvement to make sure it does not happen again. We need to make sure that we share the information. It's important that everyone is aware to avoid doing the same thing all over again. It's good that your team knows, but what about the others? We need to make sure that all studies are behaving and doing what they should do. And we should put in place a verification process to make sure we understood this update and that we're doing better moving forward. Because we are managing studies that are getting more and more complex and global. That's why we need to adapt our processes to align to this new reality. And let's make sure that working all together, we can implement everything we learn. That's how we can improve and get better as a team and as a company.
Excellent. So this concludes our conversation on Phase 3 clinical trial management. It was a pleasure having you on board for today's episode. Thank you for making the time.
Well, thank you for having me today, Valerie. My first podcast ever, and you made me feel comfortable. You were so sweet. So, really, the pleasure was mine.
Thank you. As we conclude another illuminating episode of Face Forward, we find ourselves at the crossroads of science and progress. Remember that behind the jargon and statistics lie stories of unwavering commitment, meticulous observation, and the pursuit of evidence that shapes our understanding of health and disease. Stay at the forefront of knowledge and innovation and follow Face Forward on your preferred platform. My name is Valerie Kovney. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.